We are thrilled today to welcome Dr. Swati Mehta. Dr. Mehta is a registered psychotherapist, and she is interested in improving access to evidence-based mental health services for those undergoing rehabilitation through online health programs. Welcome, Dr. Mehta.
Thanks, Oda.
So let's start with telling me about your area of research and the need for improved access to mental health services for people undergoing rehab.
Yeah, what we find in research and just in Canada in general is that as people with disability go through the rehab process, they usually have access to allied health, such as physiotherapy and occupational therapy. However, those seeking mental health really don't have that access. A recent survey found that only 2 to 4% had access to mental health during their rehab process. And so what one of my research interests is to provide that access to services that are evidence-based through online services that are a little bit more sustainable than some of the face-to-face options.
So your research focuses on online health programs.
Yes.
For someone who hasn't tried that before, what should they expect? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's a little bit different from face-to-face because it's very self-directed as opposed to going into a face-to-face session. You're kind of sometimes accountable to yourself and trying to get a lot of that work done online by yourself. But a lot of our programs do have that accountability by having a clinician guide that process with you and practice some of those skills that you would have in a face-to-face counseling type session. And so in the beginning, I would say, it might be a learning curve to get online and kind of get used to being on the computer. But I think once people get on board and have, that conversation with the clinician and even get to know other peers online and kind of develop a sense of community that's more digital than face-to-face, they really get involved and they start to feel that, they're welcome online as well. And so that's what we've been trying to aim for, kind of creating that online digital community.
That's great to hear, and that's really important, especially nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
So you say it's self-directed, and that's extremely important. I'm a proponent of everything self-directed, taking care of your own health, but what is a bias or stereotype that can get in the way of someone seeking help?
Yeah, I think there's lots of stereotypes and lots of stigma still related to, accessing mental health and even just acknowledging that maybe you do need to seek help. Sometimes one of the stigmas that I feel people experience is that people think that because they've got the disability, it's okay and it's normal to have a mental health issue, to not be able to cope with some of the stresses that they're experiencing, that it's just normal and it's because of the disability. But yes, it's normal to kind of experience some of those concerns and have the issues with grief and adjustment. But I think if they seek help, they can kind of learn different coping skills and ways of adjusting that can really help them get out of that and find like a sense of purpose and a sense of meaning in their life that can get them going again in their quality of life and daily activities of living. And so that myth that, just because now I have a disability, it's okay and it's normal for me to be depressed or anxious is not necessarily the case. And it's really helpful to kind of reach out there and kind of get the help that you might need. The other myth that I often see among people is that, only people that are weak are going to be the ones that seek help for mental health, and that's not the case. I think most of us experience stress in our lives, and sometimes we don't have the skills to cope with that. And so that doesn't make you weaker, it just means maybe you need more tools in your tool belt to kind of help you adjust and things like that.
I definitely think it's important to seek the resources that are available to you and take advantage of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's great. So switching gears a little bit, I wanted to ask you, from your research and what you know, what is the interconnection between aging, disability, and mental health?
Yeah, that's a really important topic because I think people with disability tend to have accelerated aging related to the disability or just in general. Maybe people with spinal cord injury might have, issues such as osteoporosis or even cardiovascular health that kind of makes their aging process a little bit accelerated. And that can cause a lot of people to feel burdened and feel less independent than they normally would. And so mental health really becomes an important part of the piece where they have to learn to cope with some of those secondary complications that kind of occur as they're aging with their disability. And so trying to kind of learn those skills to manage that aging process is really important. And, even roles can change as we age. But, with the disability, it gets even harder to adapt to those changes in roles as we're aging. And so being able to adapt to not just normal living, but also the issues with disability and aging is really important.
For sure, that's really important. What kind of obstacles do people have especially with online? Do you find people have obstacles joining, or what obstacles?
Yes, online, I think one of the fears people have is that they're not going to be able to connect to their clinician or other peers online as they would in face-to-face, right? Like, we're so used to being in person, we're used to having a community where we meet each other face-to-face, and now, especially with COVID, we've had to change things up and do so many things online through Zoom and other digital platforms. And so I think one of the fears people have is it's not that same, connection that people can have. And I think once they get going, it's really important to see that you could still have that same connection either through video chat or telephone, because sometimes it's about the personal touch. And having that conversation, it doesn't matter if you're face to face or if you're not. Even when you don't see the body language, if you're doing a telephone call, you really still see the tone of the individual and the conversations you're having. And so that really helps you also connect to the other individual. And if you're doing things like video chatting, you could still put it one step further, and you could still see, a lot of the body languages, a lot of the laughter, and the nervousness and things like that. So you could still kind of connect, and it really helps people, especially those that don't have access to services. Maybe they can't find a ride to a rehab facility, they live far away, and there's no specialized services for them. And so this really provides them with the opportunity to connect with someone at a level that maybe they won't have if they weren't able to kind of go online.
I really appreciate that perspective. So my final question I'll leave you with, what's it like from your perspective, the online? Has there been any obstacles or advantages that you can share with us?
Yeah, I find a lot of people will say things like, I'm not sure if online is for me. People that are older and not tech savvy will say, I don't really know how to use the computer. I don't even know how to connect to a digital video conferencing chat form. And what I say is, we're always here to help you. If you need help to get onboarded and get started, one of our first sessions is just getting you acquainted to the computer system, kind of get you going and help you understand that, once you do it a few times, it's just a skill that you learn, and we're always here to help you through that process.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mehta. I appreciate your time. And where can people go to learn more about online mental health services?
Yeah, so our website is rehabpsych.sjhc.london.on.ca. And I think you could see our logo as well to see where we can get services.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Mehta.
Thank you.